The stream might pause momentarily tonight sometimes, but it should resume after a minute or two. Please bear with us. Our video card may be crapping up, may need to be replaced by Dell soon. We just can't do it right at the moment. Thank you for your patience. I'm not starting this podcast until there's more listeners.
You just dare me not to start this podcast. No Trump tonight.
This time for sure. This time for sure.
I was gonna go see my favorite cover band this week, Crystal Shit. They do a Doors show. You like the Doors?
Not anymore. I used to like them till about 2 weeks ago. It's a weird question, actually. Do I like the Doors? I used to, 40 years ago, really liked the Doors and thought they were a super heavy band and all that. And recently, I think because of Phineas and his fucking little thing, I said, oh, I'm going to go listen to some stuff again. And I didn't care for it that much. So there's some good stuff. But
What's your favorite song by the Doors?
I would have used to have said Peace Frog, but now I'm not so sure.
Is that a frog that smokes a bunch of dope or something?
I don't know what it's about, really. And then there's another one called The End that has like some references to banging your relatives. It's kind of cube speakish.
Were they working with Prince?
No, no, this was before then.
Fingerprints.
But I didn't. Just wasn't my thing anymore.
It is 3 minutes until time for the show.
It used to be, if you wanted to prove that you were a super cool dude, you would tell chicks that you had read Jim Morrison's book of poetry, because you were beyond the Doors. You got with Jim and his poetry at like a universal vibe level, man. That was a trick boomers used to use.
To get laid.
Yep.
What's up, baby? Do you like the Doors?
I go to the same haberdasher as Jim Morrison. What is a haber, and why does it need dashing so much?
Oh, don't spoil the letter to the show. Actually, no, there's a different letter. And I wish you wouldn't dash. If he's hammering, I wish you would take it slow. Can I get a haber trotter?
I'm gonna go to the haberdoddler from now on.
The Super Happler-Doppler Radar 9000. Haberdoppler. Can you say Haberdoppler?
When the 9000s wear out, you notice they'll go to version 3.
connected to freethinkradio.com.
What I got?
A note. Show off. You think that's funny?
What do you mean?
Rubbing that in my face.
You got one too, probably.
Probably. You're just assuming my privilege here?
It's each one of our own individual journeys, man. Busted myself up. Arnold Schwarzenegger pays somebody to stretch his son. Like his son goes to stretching classes or has a professional stretcher come over to the house maybe and stretch him out 3 times a week. And do you think that there's a benefit to that thing? I contemplate stretching a lot more now, and maybe that I should incorporate stretching into my pattern. I think about it way more than I've ever thought about it in the past. Like the last 56 years thinking about stretching, zero. Last like 2 weeks, all I can think about is stretching.
Just this, even this bit.
Yep,
You can even stretch this bit.
I could. But let's go on with the show.
Let's do the show. Good evening, America, and its lesser-known friends. This is Dr. Fox coming to you live from Subbasement 27, deep in the heart of the Hypercube Studios here in Orlando, Florida, America's Australia. And it's a brand new episode of Time for the Show. Yeah. So you can already tell things are getting changed around. There's some changes being made, son. And the first thing we've got is like the new update on the Hypercom visual windows, so you can view the com feeds right here like you can at timefortheshow.com clicking the Discord button. It's super easy, super fun, and in fact I've even got the ability to talk to you. If I talk to you like this, I have to look up at you, because maybe I'm saying to you that you're important. You are deserving of me to lift my head up and to address you directly. But for the other camera, I look down, and that's Peas. Hi, Peas.
Hello, kids, and Dr. Fox. How are you this fine Monday evening?
Oh, wow. What a fantastic question, because I want to tell you all about how great a day I had. But I think we should just move on to Cube News, my favorite part of the show. That's how it works, kids. This week on Cube News, Peas stole a cat. So that's what you were telling me about before the show.
I was telling you about it. I'm not sure that.
So you found somebody else's cat and you took it.
I liberated.
You said at one point that this, to me, that the cat had like a mark around its neck where it would like have a collar.
Yeah.
You say it lays down on your lap and you pet it.
Yeah.
And you feed it sandwiches. You feed it whole sandwiches, Reubens.
No, I take the bread out. I just give them the meats. Cats, when they're asking,
do you give them the Russian dressing?
Interested in meat? No, they don't like it.
So you stole this cat and brought it home, and now you're upset about the cat.
I'm not upset. He's just not. He's not as friendly with my other cat. That I guess technically, if you're gonna say I stole this one, I guess I stole that one.
And he's not friendly with any of you.
No, he loves us. He thinks we're great, but I think he just wants us all to himself. He wants the other cat gone.
And that cat's already been there.
Yeah,
and you stole that cat too, right?
Well, no, I don't know if that's true, but it's wound up in my possession.
The kind of way, yeah. Well, it wound up in your possession, kind of like this other cat. So you have one kitty cat that you've already stolen. What was the community's cat? That was the people's cat, right? It was out on the streets. It was a street.
Do you know how you can go? Do you know how you can go to a park and you can take as many ducks as you want? Like,
I mean, it's kind of typical.
It's the same kind of thing with cats, dude.
Just scoop them.
If you can catch them, you can catch them.
I know a guy that brought 2 cats home from rest areas. And he has the scars to prove it.
You know what? That's one of the most common areas where pets get away.
A rest area?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't seem to really want to go with him. And they didn't seem to like living with him.
Philo Drummond lost his cat traveling cross country, although I don't believe it was at a rest area.
I hope it wasn't like in that vacation movie.
No,
where he tied his cat's leash to the rear bumper.
They drove on because they were relocating, and they were almost at their destination when because they put posters up. They stayed a couple days, as many days as they could, looking for the cat. Been a family member for more than a decade. And they just about to get where they're going, they get a phone call. Oh, I got your cat. Guy sent him a picture. They turned around, hightailed it back, and got that cat. And then they went back to start their new lives in a state I'm not going to name because.
But yeah, they don't have a cat anymore. They don't have their cat.
No, they do. They got it back.
They got their cat. So they lost their cat and got it back.
Sure, but it was Philo Drummond Overman. And I'm not going to tell you where he lives now because, as you know, the high epochs of the church are always swarmed with bobbies and acolytes trying to get the true word of Bob and hypercubism and the words of the Book of the Subgenius bestowed upon them by Uberman and Oberman and all the different things that we've got, Keeper of the Mystic Secrets. So we don't really ever name where they're at any given time because the throngs, and Fox, you and myself have had issue with throngs in the past, so you know where I'm coming from. The throngs can be out of control.
Come on, I can't come up with puns on the show, so you get -2 points for that. All right, so had
fair enough.
Had other parts of the show. We're gonna come back to this because I think you've got a problem. I think you're like a feline kleptomaniac. I think you're abducting animals off the street in a bad. You said he's like neutered.
Yeah, well, you know how
100 pounds.
Do you know how an animal can give you that parasite, especially a cat? Like, pregnant women are not supposed to deal with a cat box because they can get this bad parasite. And there's actually a parasite that its life cycle is to make the host animal a little bit crazy for cats. And you'll see mice that are affected by this. And the only way you can get it is by handling cat fecal material or being around it, like when you're cleaning a cat box and stuff. So what I think is the cats, they scratch in, you get that bacterium and that parasite in you, and that makes you crazy for cats. Shit, dude, I might wind up with 60 fucking cats here. This could be the beginning of a terrible crisis in my life.
You'd become the cat man. There's always the creepy old cat lady, and then there's a couple of people that
every now and then
usually have to me like, oh, those guys. So So it's either that woman or those guys. So a dude with a lot of animals. Like you're trying to fill a void in your heart.
They need the cat man so the cat ladies can be organized. If they didn't have the cat man, the cat ladies would be disorganized.
But you stole the first cat, and you stole this one, and you just want to get rid of it because it doesn't get along with the first cat you stole.
Correct. And that cat, because it was stolen first, if we're going to use your terminology,
it's not mine.
Really
it's the laws. It's the laws terminology of the land.
I don't think
Read the sticker on my door. I love the Constitution. Speaking of reading things,
listen,
did you get that thing I sent you? I sent you a webmail via the internets. Did you get that webmail I sent you?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? I sent to you, so we'll have to pull that up. And then all right, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna read the show. I'm gonna read the mail. I'm gonna read the mail. I'm gonna open a letter, and I'm going to read the mail. And while I open the letter and begin reading the mail, you can go open your webmail and get that internet I sent you. All right, I sent it earlier because it's important. You're gonna need it. All right, so let's go. We got the mail in, everybody. Congratulations. Oh, we got the kittens too. You're talking about handling feline fecal matter and getting parasites. This is Reverend Johnny's 24-hour kitten watch cam at Twitch TV/watch these cats. So go chase them pussies, yo. All right, so we have mail. All right, here we go. That's me opening the envelope. I'm going to open it some more that way. And it says, "Dear show, what's the big deal with sitting at the back of the bus? That's where the cool kids sit." And that's from a lot of cis woman of Grab Me, Idaho. So I'm putting the mail back now. Here, I can do that on the camera. You see? Putting it back.
It's real mail. So people, for you scoffers, scofflaws, and ne'er-do-wells who think that we make this up and it's not real mail,
you hear that?
Behold,
that's where I keep the mail.
That's where he keeps it. He can see it.
It's a true fact. So, Pease, why did you tell people to move to the back of the bus?
Well, I don't tell people that.
Well, why did you?
I would never take the bus. I don't care where you sit on it.
Are you above that? Are you above public transportation?
No, I've done my bus times.
It's a service. You've done it. When did you do it? Back when they were telling people to sit, on top of the bus?
Probably. I have been taking city buses all across states and all that stuff since I was in the second grade. So through major metropolitan areas up until the last place I lived where you could still depend on the bus system was in San Diego, which really had a good one. And I used that till I was
big rep for the San Diego bus system.
They have a trolley system. San Diego actually has a very progressive system that connects different cities to the county and stuff. And you can, if you've got time,
absolutely not.
Or at that time, if you've got time, then you can get anywhere in San Diego County on their bus system.
If you've got time, you can get anywhere on the bus system. That's progress for you. What were we talking about? So yeah, why? Yeah. Well, did you? Where did you sit on the bus? Front or the back?
I like to sit with the driver's area on those
talk to him a lot?
seats. In the old days, they had like sideways seats by the driver and stuff, and I kind of like that. No, I don't talk to the driver, of course not.
No, wouldn't ask him how his day was.
See, a lot of the troublemakers go right to the back of the bus. And me, when I get off the bus, I want to, bus is stopped, I want to pop up, boom, I'm off the bus, man. Like when I pull the thing and the bus is pulling over, I go to look, is there people going to get on? Can I go out the front? If there's too many, I'll start walking to that middle door. because I'm gonna pop off that bus. Man, he's boom, hit the ground rolling, so that guy can take the fuck off if he wants. Because he's a working man, that bus driver. I don't talk to him, of course not.
So you were executing your white privilege in sitting next to the driver.
Well, if the seat's empty, you know.
If it's empty,
Somebody's got to use it.
Did anyone ever make you get up? Some big pregnant woman come in and go, "Hey, fucko."
Oh,
Slide over.
The special seat. See, now here's the thing: the special seat for the pregnant woman is the first seat that's like a normal seat. Those are the real handicap seats. Now, if you got a wheelchair, they got a whole thing that flips up. So don't even go there. I'm in a legitimate. And here's the thing: I have a handicap bus pass, so I can sit wherever the fuck I want.
You have that now, or you had that then?
I have. If I was to go get a bus pass right now, that's the one I would get.
Well, you've got that now, so now you have a reserved seat. Earlier, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't have one then.
Because I would sit anywhere.
Did you ride the bus to school?
I was a man of the people, Fox. I would sit wherever I wanted, not just a handicap spot. I would mingle with the other non-handicapped people.
It's problematic piece.
Well, I think it was good for 'em.
You do love problems.
I do. I used all mine up.
You too, huh? All of your cherry sours. Yeah, tonight's show brought to you by cherry sours and rainbow corn syrup cream-filled goodies. Eat on the microphone. It's my favorite part of the show. Well, you do the microphone.
Unless you eat something in the middle. So here's the thing, Fox. You might want to say, maybe I'll just tease this. But, last week, we had some conversations about the nature of comedy itself and whether Chappelle had committed his own mea culpa and killed his career by taking on issues and doing some comedy about transgenderism, if that's a word. I don't know if that is a word or not, but I think it does, even if it's a butchered, terrible turf word. I didn't mean to use it, but nonetheless, it's out there. You know what I mean by it. And I said no. People that who were saying that it was a bad thing hadn't watched it, because it was, if nothing else, a very poignant statement about society and how people are represented. You have to be represented.
Which special are we talking about?
We're talking about The Closer.
The most recent one.
The most recent one.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Just clearing that, because
Did you get a chance to
the whole scenario spans the last two specials that he's made.
Yeah.
The prior one, which was Sticks and Stones, correct?
Correct.
And that's that's what drums up a lot of the commentary in The Closer. Still there?
Because for whatever reason, I'm not even watching this one. Yeah.
Just start over.
Well, I'm curious now, because we said that you were going to watch it, and then we were going to discuss it, and I'm wondering if you had watched it.
I did.
And then maybe we would discuss it, because I thought it was a work of art. I had a hard time finding out how someone could watch this and be upset by it, because the message to me was totally different than what was being portrayed by certain members of the trans LGBTQ community. But then that got me thinking about how you don't just represent yourself anymore. It's like if somebody from that community is offended, they go on some platform and say, okay, we're offended. And so all of a sudden, that means, well, okay, that's the whole group. Like, one person can speak for all those people, it seems like now. And I'm just curious, you've seen it. We should do our musical break, and then we'll come back and we'll tell us what you thought about it and how far off base you think I am. Because again, I'm the kind of guy that
we can just do how off base you are for the rest of the episode.
Well, for the rest of the series.
You want to keep it relevant, right?
Right.
So you want to take your breakies now, and we'll come back.
I think it's going to be very exciting, and we'll have a lot of ground to cover.
All right, kids. You heard Pease. He's driving the show. We'll just let him do it. All right. See you in a minute.
But you said that we were going to.
You're listening to Time for the Show, a production of Hypercube Labs. Find out more at hypercubego.com. This show is brought to you by packslack.com, home of Triology soaps. Do yourself a favor and buy your ass some fine Triology soaps to get clean at packslack.com. And every week, buy our good brony Patreon super pepperonis like Subject He Change and Agnes Beef and Robert South and Michael Marcus and Reverend Loch Ness and Dr. Trench and Agent Lloyd and Negative at Night and Long Dead and Scalpod and Hazel the Windmills. You know, she does the music for the intros. And Reverend Count Sloth and Caller 23 and Reverend 80 and I'm a Subgenius and Dr. Cosmac and Apostasy Exponord. If you want to be one of these spiffy doodle hey-haws, then take your butt on over to patreon.com/hypercube and become one with the Showciety. Yeah! We now return you to Time for the Show, already in progress. Alright, it's just me now. Just me. I was able to read the chat. Here, I'll bring Pease. You want to come back, Pease? Are you ready? I can bring you back now. Watch this. Clunk! There he is. Look, everybody, it's Pease. I brought him back. Gloria Miller in the chat says, you can get just as drunk on water as you can on land. That's by Pat Buttram, Mr. Haney from the American comedy Green Acres.
That's not really true.
All right, so what is true is that I did watch the Chappelle special. Now, Pease asked me several times over the last week if I'm going to watch it, and I told him that I felt bad that I would be appropriating his audience. I thought it would be a racist move on my part to enjoy that. But what I've come to learn from the special is that Dave Chappelle stole my bit. He totally ripped me off. But as the big guy, I gotta let him have it. I gotta let him have it. So congratulations, David Chappelle. You've made it in comedy. So where do you want to start, Pease? Because I'm gonna come back to that. That's what I'm gonna close with. Here are my notes. Pease stole a cat. Dave Chappelle closer. And let me see. Last week we had this, and that's this. So I had a couple of notes on here. Okay, so yeah, we had from NPR. Too often in the closer, it just sounds like Chappelle is using white privilege to excuse his own homophobia and transphobia. And Chappelle makes quotes in the comedy stand-up special, The Closer.
They explain. He goes on further to explain how Chappelle has white privilege.
Gay people are minorities until they need to be white again.
Correct. But part of his whole premise of that is a lot of Chappelle's fans are guys my age that happen to be white. When he came up, when he was coming up, a lot of his college, his audience was white. Matter of fact, a white person laughing too hard is really, and Dave talks about this in his specials, is one of the things that made him walk away from his Comedy Central thing, because there's a fine line between being laughed at and being laughed with, and making people laugh. And Dave decided he didn't like that. So I know that my opinion, as one of them white guy, longtime Dave Chappelle fans, probably doesn't mean anything to anyone. But that's what they mean. That's what this guy meant. He kind of explained it. His white privilege, because he has all of these people, such as myself, go, well, you didn't understand Dave's act, and Dave's a genius, and Dave really did what they're doing and did it in a way to show them that that's what they're doing, and it's all lost on him. And I agree with the assessment that Dave did a brilliant bit. There's some built-in pieces to it, and everything that the community has accused Dave of doing, they themselves have done in their criticism of Dave's piece of art that he's presented to us, regardless of.
Well, yeah, and I believe that's polarized by the writer of the article himself. Because there's a highlight at the end where it's talking about Dave getting into an argument with a heckler. Are you familiar with the NPR article we're talking about? It sounds like you are.
Yeah, I read it. I have.
So there's a bit near the end where it's Dave chose to get into it with a heckler or something like that, and the writer, I'm not gonna say the reporter, but the writer says, "I'd probably call the cops." Which I think is a fantastic line. And it's like, if I was in Dave Chappelle's position and some motherfucker was giving me shit from the audience and it was going back and forth, I'd just call the police. And that's the difference between you and Dave Chappelle.
Right, but the irony is early in the article when the guy talks about Dave Chappelle's using his white privilege, and Dave Chappelle saying gay people are a minority
until they need to be white again.
Until they need to be white. At the very end of the article, he proves Dave's statement by, I would have called the cops, because that's a very white person,
response to do.
Fucking thing to do to someone using words at you. Because that's all heckling is.
And he brings that up in this special.
It's just words.
Is that, if it was two black guys, like, neither of them are gonna call the police because they're gonna come and fuck them both up. I forget exactly. I just watched it today.
You come and kill us both.
That's that bit in a nutshell. No snitching. There was I wish I had it saved for the still store, but there was a tweet last week, and it was one of those rainbow themed. Man, where did I see that? I can look it up on the next break. But it said, in this neighborhood, we do not call the cops. We do not use Ring doorbells. And I was like, that sounds like a great neighborhood to rob.
Yeah, I want to go there.
It sounds like a great place. And it was, I forget where it was going, because they were being gentrified. And so, the white kids were moving in and bringing their drones.
You made a point, and I think it's important in contents of, which special were we talking about? Because you referenced Sticks and Stones, and in Sticks and Stones, he did a lot of different material, probably more Dave Chappelle, like not as loaded with a social message as this one was, but I just want to draw to the fact that Dave starts this whole bit with talking about people are complaining that Sticks and Stones was Dave punching down on the LGBTQ community. Okay, that was Dave punching down on that community because that's not the type of humor we like anymore. We like jokes about dyeing your hair purple and having a mishap. We like jokes about how our bus pass was rejected, but a nice stranger gave us a 3-hour pass and we were fine. Those are the kind of jokes we want Dave to do. Dave didn't do that, and so there was a lot of complaints about that he's punching down. So his whole bit, he starts out with this, is he talks about punching down and him kind of not understanding what that means. And then he goes into this long story about having a confrontational relationship that starts out being very confrontational with a trans woman who Dave befriends actually at the end of this whole thing because it was an educational moment. He learned something about people and whatnot, and to the point he
made a friend. He made a friend.
Correct. And he truly sold me on that concept throughout this entire bit, to the point where he's in San Francisco and sight unseen, she says she's an entertainer, she's done these things, you can open for me. Okay? Now maybe that's Dave's white guilt. If he's got white privilege, he must have white guilt too. I think those things go hand in hand. But whatever. And Dave goes on to tell him this special about how she does, like, you never seen somebody bomb for so long. And this is not a 5-minute in the club on a Monday or Sunday night where they flash you off with a flashlight. She's got 45 minutes
She's
to
the
fill.
opener.
She's the opener for Dave Chappelle. That's a 45-minute bit, and she just keeps driving home. She tried to do, and Dave talks about this special, she tried to do the swing back, she tried to do the repeat, but they were so unfunny to begin with. They had too high a mountain to climb to get to that funny level, and she was too mean-spirited to pull it off. Dave talks about this. Nonetheless, he let her open for him again.
Okay.
Gave her some notes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we gotta move this further along for the brevity of it. So the specials come out, and there was a response, and that's what we were talking about last week. Is the response to this? It's interesting. I think I'm just now figuring out the title, the closer. Who was the opener? That's interesting. Because a lot of the stories about his opener, and he leads something. He tells his story, but then he uses my bit. And he says, "I'm transphobic." I just tell okay, I'm racist. All right, now what do I do? And so now he's doing it, and he's using his white privilege to do it. I don't appreciate it, Dave Chappelle. That was my security blanket. That was my insecurity blanket from space and God and Jesus, a little smelling of lavender. But
I think that's another tool he used to make.
So he's got that, and so he admits, okay, I am, and here I am, and there's been backlash. Let me check here. I do have this saved on my phone, and I will check that. But so there is anticipated backlash because there was backlash on the last one, and it's here now. And did you have some highlights on that? Because that's what you were calling me about earlier today. What's the response that's coming forward from all of this? Why does it matter?
I think it matters because I took Dave's work, and like again, my opinion doesn't mean anything. It'll be discounted, or I'll be called a racist or a transphobe. I thought this was a brilliant piece of art that held a mirror up to the LGBTQ community and said, you've gotten, for a minority group, you really skipped the line. You skipped the line. He made a joke about if black people had worn booty shorts, and something else or whatever, maybe they wouldn't have had an extra 100 years of slavery. But there's a reality to that, and I've seen it in my lifetime. Now, there's no African American citizen in this United States and say, "Oh, in my lifetime, I saw racism against my people totally become accepted." It's still not, and it's still somewhat institutionalized in that it's okay in private circles when there's nobody around listening to you to say terrible things about people, but. As Dave said, if you take the racism aside and add the gender equality issue, or you add that, it's much more militant, it's much more in your face, and at the same token, I think what he showed in this is that they started punching down on Dave for doing this when the final bit of this show was Dave saying, and this is a terrible story, the woman was so accosted online by her own community. Why would she work with Dave Chappelle? Not even about her comedy, just why would she even take this opportunity from him? A lot of to the point now, she killed herself. Okay? She killed herself because she felt like her own community now erased her. Okay, she took so much pride and strength from that when they turned on her with the cancel culture, she killed herself. And Dave is ending his show. He's ending his comedy special with this. And there's not really that much laughter going on, and he starts to talk a little bit about the whole process and this and that, and there are a couple laughs in that. But I think that Dave knew all this was going to happen, and this was all to show us a few days after watching the show of this community punching down on Dave Chappelle, because if most of them had watched it and watched till the very end and took it all in, one is people have to be able to laugh at yourselves. People have to be able to laugh at themselves. And I'm sorry, there's always going to be a source of humor about people that are identify with certain groups or are in certain groups.
Well, everybody's in certain groups.
Like, that's why
everybody's in certain groups. Like and in the last special, because now I wish I had watched the last special a little bit more recently too. He goes through a lot of things in the special. In the first 10 minutes, he does his bit about getting vaccinated, and he does the space Jews joke. He starts what will be, a running joke between there. And then where do we get? And then he gets to, at 9 minutes and 30 seconds, he starts on DaBaby. And that's where the rest of the show starts to carry before he gets to the bit about the opener. So at the beginning, he does his vaccination bit, and that gets a mixed response already. He gets booed by somebody in the audience, and he makes his commentary about getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which gets mixed responses. And he reaches Space Jews, and it's so it's 10 minutes into an hour and a half long special, and that's where he says it's gonna get rougher than this.
And you've already cringed, and that's on purpose. You've already cringed, and that's on purpose.
So because it's
gonna get worse.
He's done this, and so he's brought in everybody, and he ends up like shitting on QAnoners and alternate thinkers. Definitely not don't thinkers. And
he does steal that bit.
And he carries that into, and so everybody at this point at 10 minutes, everybody is wound up into it. He's got different. He's got one group that doesn't usually get picked on a lot by comedians that aren't Jewish, and that's Jews. And so he's got that. So he's got everybody by the hook.
He's got like 4 threads.
And the Instagram anti-Semitism, which I can't pull up because apparently I can only do it on my phone. Is that a thing? You can't access Instagram on a browser without opening the source code and swapping over to mobile view?
That's why I'm a TikTok.
But anyway, Space Jews listed for that bit. He's listed as an anti-Semite by an anti-Semitism Instagram, and that got over 2,700 little likes or whatever those are.
The comparisons between the two groups. Are you seeing the Jewish Defense League coming out against Chappelle today? I mean,
I'd have to look. I'd imagine not. That the Jewish community condemned him for it, but he is listed as he is now listed as an anti-Semite. So he is utilizing white privilege, and he is now being labeled an anti-Semite by some groups, not everybody, but some groups. And just like some groups, they're lumping him in. So he's got the QAnoners and everything like that. Oh my God, where was I going with this? So everybody's included. Everybody's included in the previous special. He does what he does, and it's there's a lot of observation. It's observational humor, and he goes over it. And what he has seen in specifically the trans community, not just the LGBT, and he just narcs on them for quite a while. He references the whole bit.
This will be the last time he ever talks about it.
And until there's an understanding. Well, that leads into other things. He brings up that this is like one of his contractually obliged Netflix specials. And I don't know how many specials he was signed to. I think it was like 7 or 11, something. I don't know. So this is it. Is he done on that contract? Has he done 6 specials? So he's okay. So he can. So not only is he saying that he's done doing jokes about the topic, and he's not going to bring it up anymore until X. You believe that he was planning something with the response that came out of this? Like, despite him saying that he comes out and says, I have no problem with trans people to an extent. He goes on about it at one part about why he's uncomfortable about like certain situations. He says he's uncomfortable with it.
And he gives a couple examples. A bar fight he got into, and he didn't realize until they were actually going to trade blows that his opponent was a trans man,
and didn't know.
And then he proceeded to beat the shit out of him. And then it's a good bit. Here's the thing. Yes, I do think that Dave knew that there was going to be a fault for this, and I think you're bringing up the 6th and final part of his contract. Dave didn't care if they canceled him. You gotta remember something. This is a guy that walked away before. He didn't like how his comedy was being received, and he walked away from a lot of money. No one's really ever done that before. And I think Dave was like, you know what? I'm going to go out on the ledge here. I'm never going to joke about these things again. To me, when he's saying that, I'm never going to joke about these again because I'm going to make this funny, and I'm going to make this very poignant story. And I don't care if Netflix never shows this because I made the video. I made the special. I fulfilled my obligation. Show it or don't. Fuck it. It's here. And I think that Dave, he'll come back, he'll do something else, and he'll probably be true to his word. He was true to his word last time, and he probably won't joke about it anymore. But he wasn't trying to make you laugh with this. He was trying to teach society that when we group ourselves into these groups like this and don't allow any criticism of that group, we're all punching down on each other. And we're just looking for the next smaller group or larger group to punch down onto.
All right, and that's what he says at the end. He says, "Stop punching down on my people. Who are his people?"
I think I don't want to speak for him. It's not my work, But what
do you interpret from that when he says, "Stop punching down on my people"? Who are his people? Are we his people? Is he talking about black people? Is he talking about comedians?
I don't think he's talking about race, gender, or anything like that. I think he's talking about humanity, and people that are going along with him are saying, hey, there is some confusing things about this that I don't understand, that no one understands. And here within your own community, you want us to be all accepting and all loving of all this stuff, and you don't do it yourselves. How are we supposed to? So what do you really mean? Why are you punching down on society for not understanding an unreasonable request that you don't even honor within your own individual communities. That's what I thought it meant.
The new generation, it's there seems to be a lot of he brings up Twitter at one point, and everybody on Twitter. It wasn't just people in her community. A lot of people on Twitter harassed his opener into suicide, bullied her, and that was
true. But it was the criticism from her own community that was
there were at times in his monologue where he's addressing the trans community specifically and these areas here and there, and then everybody else, and not a lot of where we are. So there is that group, and it's part of a generation. He gets into that with I like them old gays, the Stonewall gays, and those people, they let it pretty shitty. So it's and then he brings up gay people have to be are a minority until they have to be white again, and that goes into the bullshit that I've been speaking about for a while, and it's these people can jump in, and human beings, these people can jump into a minority group and receive and I know this isn't a literal thing, but receive benefits and protection and inclusiveness. There's by being in this community, you're in this community. Doesn't mean they all get along. Doesn't mean they're always going to get that. And sometimes it's not a good thing to do. And sometimes it's not a good thing to do. And when you're just jumping into where you have people that, lives are impacted because, the way that they are, the way that God made them, is they're different from everybody. They're ostracized for it, and they're some of them look different, some of them act different.
Would David been a better person? Would David been a better person to never give her that opportunity, much less let her do it a second time?
Yeah. So what's he doing by putting her up? Is he just saying, well, look, I'm not transphobic. I had a transsexual comedian open for me.
He did say that in the bit, and it's a cringeworthy line where he tries to say, "Oh, I get a pass because I do have a trans friend."
There's
a little bit in there that he does that.
That's why I have to stay on. That's why I always have to text message Dr.
I guess, and I'm not trying to speak for anybody but myself. I want to think that I'm an inclusive person, but I know that my inclusion and hey man, live your life how you want to is counter to a lot of the things that I grew up with. And I know that I didn't go to a college where, they had gender studies. And when I grew up, all this stuff was considered abnormal behavior, and it's all considered now normalized sexual behavior and gender identity. But I'm still left, and I think a lot of society is still left with a lot of questions that they kind of want answered, but then kind of don't want answered about it. And so it leaves us all in this kind of precarious. It's an
uncomfortable truth.
Well,
why should the new younger generation? Yeah, well, why do they have to stick to any of that? I mean, if it makes you guys uncomfortable, I mean, you're the next.
They don't.
There's the next.
I'm not saying they do, but I'm saying you can't be hostile at whole groups of people because they don't understand what, to their minds, are choices that you're making. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you chose to be this way. I understand, through education, through my friends. This is a lifetime process too. It wasn't always in this mind space. But that's not a choice. It's who you are as a person. And I get that, but it still leaves a lot of questions. Some that I really want to know the answers to, and I have people that I know that are trans that I've asked the questions to. Fox does too. But some I really don't want to know. And then there's other times where I just don't give a shit, and it seems like I'm not allowed to not give a shit about your sexuality either. I'm not allowed to not care if you're gay. I'm not allowed to not care if you're straight. I'm not allowed to not know if you're trans. I'm not allowed to just not give a shit. I think that's a big part of the problem too, is that at some point in time, yeah, these are important conversations, but they don't have to be conversations that we have every single day, 2 or 3 times a day in the news and all this and that, because it's, we're all people when it comes down to it. And I just, I got questions, but sometimes I just don't want to hear about it. And I don't think I'm alone in that. And I think sometimes maybe within that own community, I think sometimes I've talked to some of my friends and they're tired. I don't always want to be at the rally. I don't always want to be marching. Sometimes I just want to hang out with my Yorkshire Terrier and watch House Flip. And so, it's, I think that the society has saturated itself with this gender acceptance of any kind of, even it's like you're not allowed to say, "Wow, that's interesting," but that's kind of bizarre to me. To me, I get that you are this person and you want to use these pronouns and all that stuff, and that's fine. I'll do all that, but to me, that's still kind of like, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. And I guess that's my privilege because I don't have to go through that work every day, and I respect that.
Your problem.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be my problem. That's what I'm saying. It's like I don't have to take on the burden of having cancer because people I know have cancer. I don't have to take on the burden of being an addict because I know junkies. And I can be empathetic to the plight, but it doesn't mean I can understand the process. And I'm not trying to equate those negative things with gender identity or anything like that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at, you can accept something and say, okay, that's how that person is, and not understand it, and sometimes want to know about it and get a little bit more understanding, but also not always want it to come from a place of anger. And that's, I guess, maybe that's talking out a little bit. That's kind of where I feel sometimes I'm put off, is a lot of the correction or education doesn't come it doesn't come across as education. The timing usually is very poor. It comes across as correcting behavior that's perceived to be wrong by a group. We don't know that it is or isn't wrong. Just this one person from that group is perceived as being wrong, and so it may become wrong. And I don't get that. And then when it's presented that way, a lot of time it's from this space of anger. And I know from
that's where like people, Eddie Murphy's Raw is. Can you? When was the last time you went through that? That's rough shit.
Watch that. I mean that
today.
And Eddie's considered a genius and all that stuff, but it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch.
So do you think?
And I don't.
Do you think that these last two specials? Do you think these last two specials are going to end up in with the way that we feel about Raw in 20, 30 years from now? Do you think? Because I don't really feel like there was any prejudice coming. Eddie Murphy did a lot of criticizing, and they're genuinely punching down. I'd say that's a good word for it. Mockery. And I didn't see David doing anything like that in the last special. And
there's a reason.
And while this is it was a very George Carlin kind of show, but it was also very unique.
But here's the thing, Argus. There's a reason that Dave Chappelle is a recipient of the Mark Twain Award. Okay, and there's a reason that there's going to be that you can cringe and not really watch Raw. Like, here's the thing, and I'm not trying to slight Eddie Murphy, but you can
totally slight Eddie Murphy. He's an asshole.
Yeah, true enough. But you can watch Richard Pryor's work from prior to that 6 years. Many still cringeworthy things in there. Richard's still entertaining. George Carlin is still entertaining. That show that Eddie did was basically a shock show. I don't know what you want to call it. Okay, and that was the last thing Eddie did for years and years and years, and HBO showed the death out of it. The difference between
he made the rest of his career out of it. Sam Kinison was still making money.
Yeah, but the thing about it is there was no underlying message to Eddie's thing, okay? I'm saying that Dave Chappelle, from the conception of this special, from this routine that he did,
think there was an
because he's a humorist, he had an underlying message that he was saying about society as a whole. That's why I say that Dave Chappelle's work
it was, it was a bit of art. He was addressing the situation, and he made a show out of it. And he told the stories, and he told the jokes about it.
And that's what comedy, tool of society, and it's what comedy is for in a society. And we talk a lot about tell a joke, then be funny. Because when people talk about
and by doing that, and summing up QAnoners, the Jews, vaccinations, and plenty of disparaging remarks about specific African American individuals, the entire homosexual spectrum, the homospectrum, we'll call it.
Well,
and it's of the LGBT QAnon, and so everybody got jokes about them. And one Instagram that isn't even coming up in my Google feed lists him as an anti-Semite. There's not a huge backlash from the Jews. There's not a big backlash from conservatives and QAnoners and conspiracy theorists. There's not a bunch of there is some backlash about his shit with the baby, and stuff like that. So he's got the movement that's at the heart. It's America's heart right now, and he's poking at it, and he's just showing everybody open wounds. Like, hey, this is here. What are we gonna do about this? And they're gushing blood, and they don't want to do anything about it. They want to keep ripping and tearing.
This was a huge
They want to keep ripping and tearing.
This was a huge flex on Dave Chappelle's part to bait, and it's a message to other comedians.
Was he baiting them? Is that
he's baiting the industry? He's absolutely 100% baiting the industry and saying, you are destroying comedy, and I'm going to do funny comedy at your expense, and you are going to complain about it, and I'm going to say that you're going to complain about it, and you're going to make fools of yourselves complaining about it, because I don't give no shits. I don't care if Netflix shows this, or if they don't, I cash the check, I got the money in the bank, and this is some funny stuff. And if the rest of you can't get along with that and make things funny like this, maybe don't do comedy. And if us as an audience can't take being made fun of from time to time and having our humanity exposed to us, being in a gay minority or being in a gender identity minority doesn't mean you lose your humanity. That's what the whole point of it is you're gaining your humanity. And with your humanity comes the ability for the other monkeys to point at you and laugh, just like you might point at us breeders and laugh. That is part of the human condition, and we cannot outlaw it or make ourselves so sensitive to it that we can no longer see it. It's like agreeing that we'll no longer have the color red because it hurts people's eyes. You need, and this was a brilliantly done piece of work, and that's why it won't compare to Raw 20 years from now, because this was a conceived art project on Dave's part, using the medium of comedy done by a master. And it was a slap in the face to every other comedian who's bowing and bending to pressure and not performing their craft because they're worried about being canceled. It's an attack on the what about Al TV sitcoms that we're going back to, where there's no you might as well be the damn news that you're watching because they're all so topical and the jokes are all canned. We are ruining the industry of comedy, just like in many ways music, mainstream music was ruined by auto-tune. It's this. I thought it was a masterful performance. And we've talked a lot about it, and you knew I was a little bit of a fanboy about it. And I said, everyone's going to say it's because of how I look and the age that I represent. You're a few years younger than I am. What did you think of it? Will you give it a thumbs up? You give it a thumbs down? Give me quick what you thought of it. What was your takeaway?
I thought it was racist and transphobic.
Okay. I think that's beautiful that two people can look at something and see something so different, and that's what.
Well, I think it was, but that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be racist and transphobic.
It's true,
and that
is true.
He's standing his ground. He's standing his ground. He said his piece, and he's presenting it like he's been driven to this point, like he has to say this. And he does. I don't really feel like he has to, but he's gonna. So people bought a ticket to come and see it, and he makes his statement, and he leads it out, and he's like, and I'm. It doesn't sound like he's closing the door on the conversation or performing or doing comedy in any capacity. What it is that he is showing that he's at a point where I've fulfilled my obligations. If I don't want to do this anymore, I'll be fine. But if I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to let you know that it was you who drove me out. And not just any group in specific, but anybody, but the entire audience. Once you start doing this shit, it's all over. Yeah, and
don't be surprised that there's no laughter anymore.
Well, people don't like that. People don't like being laughed at, and that's what you have to get across, is that they're not laughing at you, they're laughing next to you.
I don't care if there's laughter going on. I don't care if it's at me, with me,
at you. Yeah, I know that's the crux of the show.
No, wow.
But other people. Do you think it's okay just to laugh at anybody for any reason?
I do.
Interesting. Is there a term for that?
Listen, I have a thing called a conscience. I feel like I have the right to laugh at anyone about anything, but my conscience says, okay, that guy with the dad that just died, I'm not going to go make a joke about his dad at the funeral. Okay? But that's just me. Now, I have friends that would make that joke, and that's up to them to decide what they want to do. Everybody's allowed to be the judge of their own behavior and decide what they want to share of themselves with the people around them. Sometimes that's good stuff, sometimes it's bad stuff. If it's too bad, the people around you will let you know, and you learn a lesson or you be ostracized. But in comedy, that means that people just don't go to your show. It doesn't mean they take away your ability to ever get a job, that they scorn your children, that they go to your mother's house and tell her what a bad son you are. And that's what we're at as a society now. Once the mob has identified somebody that has done something wrong, and people do things that are wrong. Some of them are terrible things. That guy that was the coach of the Raiders, those are terrible emails. But now he's a pariah. You could probably hit him in the street with your car, and it would be okay. But, well, he was jaywalking. Peace couldn't help. Peace says he had a little mini seizure, and bang, that's it. Because we've made it okay for the mob to rule. We've made it okay for any mob, as long as they've got what we might perceive some kind of moral high ground whatsoever, to destroy anyone for any reason.
We're going to talk about this more next week, right?
I don't know. Do you think the kids like it? We didn't do a lot of jokes.
No, not a lot of jokes in tonight's show. Just complaining about them.
We left him to Dave. We left him to the genius, the humorist.
Yeah, comedy's taking a week off for Dave Chappelle. So everybody go home, and just remember, if all cops are bastards, then not all Black Lives Matter. All right, time for my favorite part of the show. It's where Pease apologizes Okay, peace. Let them have it.
Well, I'm sorry that we went long. You know, I feel like this is going to be a controversial show, and I guess I'm going to apologize for that. I get real passionate when I see something that I like, and I don't feel like a racist, and I don't feel like a transphobe, and I don't feel like that was Dave's message in a sense, except that it kind of was, but in the sense that it's just I just don't know what to say about it. It's just comedy. We're going to cancel people, and we're not going to cancel people based on what is or isn't deemed funny or appropriate, and comedy's never worked within that parameters. People still like the Three Stooges, being that's a physical medium where if you were to actually do that, you'd kill somebody. And people still laugh at it. People say, oh, they don't laugh at it now, but they do. This is a good show. I enjoyed it. I like talking with my good friend Dr. Fox. I like it when Bob's over my right-hand shoulder, keeping me in line with the luck plane. I didn't really steal those cats, but if you're in the local Las Vegas area and would like to adopt a big, giant, perhaps part hybrid or, lion cat, please feel free to give Pease a call. It's been great doing the show, and huzzah! Till next week, and we have plenty of japes on the tap when we next shall meet again.
Well, you heard it from him, everybody. The Pease. This is Dr. Fox signing off for Time for the Show. Broadcast every week here at youtube.com/HypercubeGo and simultaneously broadcast via sub-ether web transmissions at www.freethinkradio.com. Thanks to Dr. Ellis and Martha Artha for hosting. And check out all of the other fantastic original shows every night. Like What the Fuck Did I Just Show, The Shit Show, The Short Bus, Negative at Night, Fergan Fridays, Elvis Martini's Saturday whatchamacallit, and help support independent farce by going to patreon.com/hypercube. We'll see you next week on Time for the Show.